Welcome to Help! I Have Kids. I'm your host, Pam Marshall, a mom of 5 and a pediatric occupational therapist with over 35 years experience. This podcast is designed to equip you with practical tools, insights from experts, and real life stories. Because at the end of the day, you are the head of your child's care team. Each week, you'll hear from pediatric experts and fellow moms like you that will help build your confidence. They'll offer clarity and empower you to make informed decisions that work for your whole family. Welcome, moms, to Help! I Have Kids podcast. Today, we are online with my friend Jill talking about a topic our team researched. And you have been asking the questions, Mom. You've been wanting to know all things IEP and 504, and you want help, and we're here to help you today. So, Jill, how are you?
I'm doing great.
I'd love for you to tell the moms a little bit about yourself and your background so they know why can you speak on this topic, IEP and 504. All things school.
All right. So I am a mom first, and my son had a 504, switched to an IEP, and then went back to a 504. So I've experienced this a lot personally. I'm also a special education teacher here in Lexington in our public schools, and I have a lot of experience working with IEPs and 504s with the students that come through my classroom as well.
So you have lived it as a mom and as a professional, and I have that in common with you as well. I had a 504 for one of our children, and as a professional, I've been to lots of IEP and 504 meetings. And there's been quite a bit that has changed over the years. So it's good for moms to be kind of caught up on the process and how it works. And it's very different from medical services, very different from the medical perspective. And Jill is now a board certified behavior analyst, and she works on the medical side and, on waivers, providing supports there. So she's very familiar with kind of the whole journey, moms, from starting out to kind of the older as they transition into adults. So let's define before we go into what is an IEP, what is a 504, let me ask you a fun question. What is something fun you like to do in the summer?
Well, I'm going to say the pool is number one.
I'm with you on that one.
Thing.
Yeah.
It's my thing.
Especially when it's hot. Getting some of that sunshine, that vitamin D, so good.
Yep. I can read a book and never get in the water, or I can hang out on my float, but it's just pool time. Favorite thing.
All the way. Yeah. And moms, I bet you can relate to that. Even if you have all your kids with you, the pool time is fun. It's really, really fun. And it's sometimes challenging with a special needs kid. It can be challenging, but it is relaxing. If you get to go and relax by yourself, it sure is relaxing. Well, let's start at the beginning. So what's a 504 and what's an IEP, and how does a child qualify, and how does a mom navigate all of that?
Okay, so if you really want to start off on the specific differences between them, is that a 504 is typically where kiddos start because it's just accommodations. And when I say that, I don't mean just accommodations, but it doesn't include the instructional portion. So with a 504, your general education teacher, your homeroom teacher is working to give you all of those little parts that's going to help you be successful in your classroom. maybe sitting closer to the teacher, being allowed movement breaks, um, extended time, all of those kind of things. But it's not her having to like come over to you and teach you how to use something or how to access something. It's just giving you a little extra oomph to be able to be successful in your classroom with all of your peers. When we've tried a 504 and we're still not succeeding, that's when we're probably going to start looking into you need the instructional portion of it. If you need instruction, that's when it becomes a need for special education and an IEP.
And sometimes children come into school from early intervention and they go for an IEP right away because they know that child's needs are so significant.
Absolutely.
That they know.
But I will tell parents not to be shocked when you move from one setting to the other and the school district still has to tell you, but we can't start until we have so many weeks of data. That's a state regulation and they know your kid needs an IEP, but they have to follow those guidelines. So sometimes we just got to give them that time to do all of the things that they have to do, check all the boxes so that they can provide that IEP for you.
And there's a lot of lingo, parents, a lot of educational lingo like RTI, of response to intervention. What is that? And that's part of gathering that data and seeing that, this child was off task this percentage of the time or whatever the data is that they're tracking. And then they have enough data to warrant going through a full evaluation. And if you've come out of first steps, typically there is a full evaluation sometime in that 3-year-old's year, sometime in that year, maybe closer to 4, I don't know. But depending on what that looks like, sometime in that year, they would have their initial assessment. And then when do they have to get reassessed? How long, if they qualified as a 3-year-old for an IEP, when would they need to get reassessed?
So reassessment in the IEP world is every 3 years. But once you qualify, they actually schedule that reassessment at that second year IEP. So when you have that annual meeting, they're going to go over within the next year between our next appointment to update your IEP. These are the assessments that we are going to do so we can re-qualify you for special education. And then you don't really have to worry about those timelines at that point because the school has a full year to do that. And they will get that done before that annual meeting.
And who determines how many professionals see that child? Like what professionals are doing the assessments? Is that determined prior to?
So in that second year meeting, so knowing that your meeting's coming up, they have like a form, it's a checklist, and it'll have things like behavioral observations, a academic assessment, maybe a cognitive assessment. And it's really whatever the team at that IEP meeting decides gets checked off and added to that assessment. So for like a cognitive assessment, it would be the assigned educational psychologist to that building. If it's just an academic assessment, it could be just the school's diagnostician. So it's not like a person being assigned to it, but that category of qualified person that is going to come in and do that assessment based on what's checked off that list.
That's good. That helps the parents know what to expect. Yeah.
Well, it also, parents can request, and I've had that several times, like parents have said, I want an assistive technology assessment and you didn't mention that. Please add that now. And because it is a team decision not just on the school side or on the parent side. If you request that assessment, they'll add it.
Yeah. And there are lots of timelines. If your child didn't qualify coming into preschool or coming into kindergarten, and say your child's in second or third grade or even fourth grade, and all of a sudden there's problems and you're going down this avenue of trying to figure out support, the just right support your child needs. That's a little bit of a different process because there's timelines that go through with putting in the initial, what has to happen to get that started. So a parent's concerned, they might meet with the teacher, then what happens?
So I always tell families to have that good relationship with your general education teacher, your homeroom teacher. Typically, if you're seeing problems, your teacher is seeing problems too, and you're agreeing on we're not being successful. That 2004 update of the special education law did put in place that 6 weeks of what you said, RTI, that intervention data. We tried to intervene and provide tier 1, tier 2 instruction, but it's still not successful the way we want. So special education is needed. So if you have that good relationship with your child's teacher, you're constantly talking to them. They're getting that data taken for you, and we're looking at the results and determining whether or not we need to go forward with a full special education assessment. If you're not getting that type of support and good communication from your school, every parent under federal law has the right to make a parent request for special education. And that's just calling the school and saying those exact words. I'm making a parent request for special education. The school has a duty within that time to schedule a meeting with you within 10 days, 10 school days. They're not going to accept your referral at that point because they might not have that 6 weeks of data. But that can start the ball rolling if you have a concern and you're not getting that good communication and feedback from a homeroom teacher. Definitely go to the homeroom teacher first before you call and say, no, I want to make a formal request for special education. But it is there in case you do need it.
Yeah, that's so good, parents, to know that. And it's good to have an understanding of the timelines so you know what to expect. And that if the school is taking a particularly long amount of time, you have a right to be assertive and speak up and, know the timelines.
Well, and just so you know, that 10-day request for a special education meeting, that can be if you want to request an assessment, but it can also be if your child already has an IEP and you're not getting the communication or you're concerned and you've requested a meeting and it's not been followed up, then you can still go and say, nope, I'm asking for an IEP meeting. And it has to be scheduled within 10 school days, and the whole team has to be present.
That's good. So the child has to have a diagnosis to qualify for an IEP. Let's talk about that a little bit because there is a difference between school-based service diagnoses and medical model diagnoses. And we work right now on the medical model side. And I know a lot of parents choose to get a medical model diagnosis and submit it with this request to the school. And is there a difference if a parent chooses to not do the medical model and just goes the school route versus the ones that do? Is there a difference?
There is a difference. There are two main differences. The first is that we can have a medical diagnosis for anything, really. And a parent can bring that to me, but I have to demonstrate that it's making an educational impact, which can be the difference. And a lot of times that happens where we have a diagnosis for, let's say, autism, but we're very high functioning autism. But in the school system, I cannot demonstrate through that 6 weeks of RTI data that it's having a negative educational impact. And if I can't prove that in my 6 weeks of data, it doesn't matter if you have a medical diagnosis. I can't move forward. On the opposite side of that, sometimes that medical diagnosis can speed things along if I know it's impacting educationally, like significantly impacting.
If it's super apparent, then
Yeah.
yes, get the medical diagnosis and bring it over here with you to school. It'll go much
Absolutely,
faster.
because I'm going to have that diagnosis to move forward. But if you're coming to me with a medical one, then I don't have to take the time to pull in somebody from the school to give you a diagnosis, which if it is a need, and we know it's a need, we're going to try to push that IEP through as fast as possible. We don't want kids to go without services. So we have to follow all of those regulations. But if it's a need, that outside medical diagnosis can speed things along. I think sometimes it does become like a barrier, though, to parents. They're like, but I have this. Why can't you do this? And that's when it becomes, I don't want to say hurt feelings, but people don't understand the difference. I have to show that it's impacting educationally in order for me to go forward to provide it as a public school instructional need.
Right. And in the world, parents, of a medical diagnosis educational, you can bring medical over to educational, but you can't do it the other way around. The medical model does not accept an educational diagnosis. So a lot of parents do choose to go ahead and get the medical assessment because either way, it'll help them get medical services or it might help them get the educational services. So hopefully that clears that up and is a help to you. Because on the medical side, we sometimes get parents to say, oh, I have this diagnosis from the school of autism or whatever it is. And we have to say, no, actually, we can't accept that because there's strict regulation on both sides, on educational side and on the medical side, especially if the child has Medicaid. Those regulations are pretty strict and we have to follow them just like the school has to follow the federal and the state regulations for education. So it's complex. It's not as cut and dry. I think sometimes parents don't understand those complexities when they're heading into it.
No, and I will say that a lot of parents will go to the schools to get their diagnosis because even though it is a long process at the school, sometimes it can be shorter than trying to get in to get a diagnosis with a psychologist. But they do need that medical diagnosis. Again, on my end now, I work with a lot of adults. And in the adult world, we're not in school anymore. And we want to continue those services. And even if it's a 2 or 3 year wait list to get a diagnosis, go ahead and put your name on that list. And then just when it comes available, have that appointment. Because once you turn 18 and you're out of the schools, you absolutely need that diagnosis.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, there's a lot of help in the school transition going from school into adult. But if there isn't that help, it is anytime there's a transition, it really is the parent being proactive and understanding those nuances. So once a child has gone through the evaluation process at school, an ARC meeting will be set, and that timeline from conducting the evaluations until the next ARC is scheduled is how long? How long is that time period?
So to start the process, an ARC meeting, which is confused sometimes because an ARC meeting is an IEP meeting.
Yeah, it is.
And some people think that they're two different things, and they're not. They're the same thing. In order to start the process, the same thing that I was speaking to earlier, like that checklist, re-qualify every 3 years, that same checklist is used at that very initial. And when you do that checklist and you agree to it, the parent signs that paper saying that they give permission for the school to do these assessments. From the date of that signature to the time we come back and we have to have all assessments completed, an integrated report created, and a draft IEP created, has to be within 60 school days.
Okay. So parents, that means 60 school days is a lot longer. That could translate depending on if summer's in the middle of it or there's lots of time off, if it's over Christmas break, that could be, quite a bit delayed. And this year, school was extra delayed. If you were in the middle of all those breaks, that probably felt like 4 months before that got done. So then once you have that meeting, that next meeting where they compile and the integrated report just means however many professionals assessed your child, it's put together usually by the psychologist into one report that embeds what the OT saw or what the speech therapist saw or what the PT or what the teacher or what the, whoever it was that was doing the assessment along with the psychologist. And that's all integrated together. And then the recommendations for how to provide the accommodations, the instruction is part of that next meeting. And talk to us a little bit about that. Like, can parents bring someone with them? Is it only one parent allowed? Both parents come? Can they bring someone? What does that look like? And are they a part of helping to decide what happens in instruction?
So I will tell you that most special education teachers will come to those meetings already with a draft IEP made, and mostly because of time.
Right.
So when we have that meeting where we're going over the results in the integrated report, that teacher's already had access to that integrated report, and she knows whether or not that child is going to qualify for special education services ahead of time. So she's coming to that meeting with a draft IEP already made. And you're going to go over the results, and then she's going to go over that draft with you. At that time, we can make changes to really any part. But having that draft just kind of makes it go a little faster. And sometimes families can feel like those decisions are already made because the draft is there, but it's not. Anything can be changed. A parent at any time, while it's the very first IEP meeting they've ever gone to, or it's 12th grade and we've been doing this once a year since preschool, a parent can bring whoever they want to a meeting, whoever they want. They can bring grandma, they can bring an educational advocate, they can bring an attorney, they can bring an outside therapist, doesn't matter. Whoever they invite to the meeting, they can bring. On the flip side, me as a special education teacher, in order for me to invite someone, that person's name has to go out on the meeting invite and notify the parent that I'm going to bring someone like what if I wanted to bring like a vision specialist, something like that. I would have to notify the parent when I scheduled the meeting. It would have to be on that meeting notification. And then the parent would have to give me permission to allow them to attend. They can bring whoever they want. They're the guardian, they're the parent. I have to notify them, and then they have to give permission if I'm going to bring somebody.
So that's great information, parents. That helps you be assertive. And I know sometimes moms help each other out. I've seen that before where one mom may have been a great advocate for their child, and there's a newer mom, meaning she's new at advocating, and the seasoned mom comes with the newer mom, and you can do that. You can have someone come with you. So now we've gone through this meeting, and then what happens? Like, say they decided, or the team has to decide what services the child will get, because this is also confusing. Parents don't understand that speech is different than a related service like OT and PT, and they don't understand the differences. So talk about what the team decides, how the services are delivered, and the next part of that.
So all of those service deliveries are in the IEP, and they are most likely already in that draft IEP that me as the special education teacher is going to hand over to you after the results of that integrated report have been gone over, and we say, yes, we need special education. We qualify for special education. Now we're going to the IEP and we're designing this child's program for the next year. So if we need special transportation, it's in that IEP. You need speech, OT, assistive technology, physical therapy, everything is in that IEP. It's going to state how often, weekly, monthly, daily, and exactly how many minutes it's going to go, when it's going to start, when it's going to stop. Typically, that's always the year of the IEP, but it doesn't have to be. So any additional services that are you're qualifying for through that integrated report results, all of that is included in the IEP. That's the legal document that is guaranteeing that you are going to get those services throughout the next
year. Yeah. And typically give parents an idea of how those services might be delivered, because like they might be used to a medical model where they're getting speech twice a week for 30 minutes or something like that. What might that look like in school if they were to receive speech as a supported, support in school?
So speech is typically once a week. But I will say that it looks very different than it does in a clinic medical model. It's typically kids grouped together based on similar needs. And when they do group, kind of like a pull-out group, it's mostly kids that have the same like IEP goals, really. They're working on pragmatic language. So they'll bring everybody that has pragmatic language together, probably in that grade level, so that they can have a group to really work on those skills. Or maybe it's social language. But anything that's a language goal, they're going to group them together so that they can work on that time, because we need other kids for you to talk to develop that language.
And what might the minutes look like?
So typically they are written, at least in my experience, they're typically written 20 minutes 3 or 4 times a month, because we have gotten in trouble for not meeting those exact minutes. And then all of a sudden we're getting down the hallway and we're in first grade and we have to go potty.
Yeah.
And
real
so then
things happen. Yeah.
we've stopped and we haven't been able to make it to our speech lesson. But I know that like my school-based speechies always schedule a 30-minute group session. And they typically write it for 20 minutes 3 times a month. But you can always do a little bit more, but you can't do less in the event that we have to change our clothes or we, life, like you said, happens.
Or there's a field trip that day, it was scheduled or whatever. Yeah.
I also know that that's why speech and OT always does it 3 times a month instead of 4 times a month. If it's the regular schedule, they're just going to pick up that kid, even if they've already seen him 3 times that month. But if they're having a field trip, if they're having a class party, whatever, they're not going to pull that child out of a fun activity to go do speech.
Right.
Because no kid wants that.
No.
So
if
other thing,
okay, finish your thought, and then I have a question.
The other thing, just on a very visually different support service, is OT in the schools. Because when you work in OT at a Marshall clinic, you are on swings and in the gym and in the kitchen, and you're doing all kinds of great therapy and fun things. But if I go back to what we talked about before, that it has to be educationally impactful, a lot of our OTs at the school, they don't get to work on those great, fun, gross motor type things. So OT in the school can sometimes be surprising to parents because it's almost always just handwriting.
Or observation. Sometimes it's just the OT observing in the room and giving recommendations to the teacher. Because it's a related service and it's accommodation. It's not necessarily a hands-on one-to-one. It doesn't look like therapy, what you're used to. So
yeah,
you do have to be prepared for that.
A little caught off guard because unlike speech that write their own goals, OT in the public school does not write goals. The special education teacher has to create those goals and monitor those goals and turn in the data for those goals. This OT can assist and they will pull out to do in a small group intense instruction. But again, it has to be educationally impactful. So it can be strength to hold our pencil or to type or something like that. But it has to be educationally impactful.
That's good to remember. And my question was, what happens if a parent disagrees with something? So, like, here's a common thing. The child may be in a wheelchair and or use a walker or something like that, have a physical disability, but they may not qualify for physical therapy. If the environment doesn't require any accommodation, now probably a wheelchair they would, but let's say they are in a walker and they can, go throughout their day and there's no hindrances, they may not qualify for PT. So that's confusing to parents because parents think my child needs a PT. But maybe they don't at school. So what would a parent need to do if they're disagreeing with the recommendation? What does that process look like?
So I will say that process can be very complicated. And it also depends if you're disagreeing with a 504 versus disagreeing with an IEP. I will tell you that schools are going to try to make it work with you. They are going to try very hard to make you disagree with their recommendations. But if a parent pushes back and is consistently pushing back, advocating that they need something else, it's going to take additional meetings. And you do have to keep advocating, but most schools are going to work something out with a family that is pushing for additional services, because on their end, going to what's called a due process hearing, an official due process hearing, it's extremely costly for them. It really is. And so schools are going to do what they can to work it out with you. I've had, I'm going to say, unreasonable requests placed on me throughout my years. I've had children with significant disabilities. They needed significant medical and educational support, and the families were like, "No, you can never take them out of their homeroom class."
Yeah, or we want a diploma.
Yeah,
maybe when it's not realistic. Yeah,
I really wanted to do some of this in privacy, but the parent did not want it. They insisted. We worked with the family. They never would agree. And so, you know what? I had that child for 3 years, and 100% of her medical care and instruction was done in that general education classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot to think about, parents, because it's not just this IEP meeting, what the plan is. It's also, what are your rights as parents? What if you feel like your child is being singled out because of their diagnosis or the plan that they have? It's learning how to be an advocate, but learning how to be a team. I always say, be a team with the school. Don't be against them. It's not fighting with them. It's really a good negotiator steps to the other side and looks to see it from their perspective. So see it from the school's perspective and see it from your perspective, and encourage the school to do the same. Step on your side to see it as from the parent's perspective, and hopefully work together as a team to come up with the plan, the best plan and supports that your child needs. And a 504 is a legal document. It's different than the IEP. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit, because we've been spending time on that, IEP. A 504 is a list of accommodations that the child doesn't qualify for special ed. It's just accommodations that are required by any teacher, whether they go to specials or they have their main grade teacher, or they have a reading specialist, whoever they are, they provide those accommodations. And sometimes we talked a little bit about that, like where they're seated, or another one will be, if you have a child with ADHD, do not take away recess. Like that should not ever happen for that child. And there's so many studies. I think Finland's the big country that really allows so much play and movement, and kids are learning better and doing better in school there. Imagine that. As an OT, I think we need as much movement as possible, because I can't sit through a conference all day sitting. If I'm not moving, it's very hard to do that. And we're asking children with ADHD to try to sit and attend, and then taking away their recess if their behavior is bad. So what should a parent do if they feel like they've discovered an accommodation at home that's helping their child pay attention and get their homework done, or they're discovering a new, and how do they get that added to the 504 plan?
I mean, I would say that if you have built those good relationships with your child's team, that's a phone call. That's a text. Hey, we tried this at home this weekend and it really worked good. Can you try it at school this week and just let me know how it goes? While I was teaching, that was a constant. Like,
right.
Sure, absolutely. I'm going to try that. If you wanted something more official, you do have to ask for a meeting. because anything you add or change to a 504 or an IEP has to have a meeting because it needs to have those signatures collected at the end.
Yeah. So that does have to be an official meeting. And the
Mm-hmm.
kind of fun thing is a child can keep a 504 all the way through till graduation and beyond and keep it through college if
Absolutely.
the diagnosis supports
Absolutely.
it. And yeah, one of the things that's common, now there's arguments that people are abusing this a little bit in college and universities setting the extra time on tests. They're, that can be an abuse thing,
but sometimes it's needed.
100%. I had a child, my own child, that needed that extra time, and it was the difference of an ACT score with extra time was a 29, without a 21. When you see that big of a difference, the child is bright and cognitively understanding the material. They just cannot produce it fast enough. They can't process it fast enough. And, there are things that you can do, like I have headphones on right now. You can allow children to listen to classical music if they're really auditorily distracted, and that helps them zone in and focus. There's teenagers or kids through high school that do really well with different accommodations like that. So it's really, like you said, being a team, knowing your child and supporting your child through all the stages. And I would say to moms, if your child has a diagnosis that is going to follow them through college, do not give up that 504 in high school. Don't give it up. Maintain it.
Well, and you can always get it back.
Yeah.
I said my son started off with a 504, went to an IEP, and then went back to a 504 because the instruction portion was no longer needed. Because that 504 is really the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah.
So maybe you didn't need it your last couple years of high school, but now that we're in college, we are going to need it. And you can establish that 504 through the universities. And again, things like extra time. Yes, I hear the same things, that it's abused, but there's also a lot of accommodations. Those that I worked with at the elementary, middle, and high school level that have just a reading disability, like reading, they just really struggle in reading. They can read, but it's really slow for them. An easy accommodation that the one I'm thinking of graduated from Transy this year, like his accommodation was to be able to use auditory books.
Yeah.
He was able to go through like the visually impaired services and get his textbooks and different things needed to just the auditory version. Listen.
And there's so many cool things now, moms. Do you know that Google, if you have a Google Drive or you use a Google document, and I'm assuming maybe Word has this as well, but there's actually a feature on there, an auditory feature, that say they are writing a paper or maybe they had to read something, you can transfer it onto that document, and there's a button that it'll read the whole text to you. So if they're an auditory learner, if that's a strength of theirs, if they have it read back to them, things like that, allowing students to use those tools, because we do it at work. I mean, the end goal is we hope they're working one day, right? And they've got accommodations that make them be successful in the work environment. And I do that for myself. I use tools that help me. So that's kind of the 504 in a nutshell, is just tools that are going to help your child learn and go journey throughout their learning environment. So, well, I really appreciate this. Is a tough topic, hard for parents to get all the information, but is there a resource in Kentucky? Is there a place you recommend parents going to educate themselves a little bit more on this before we say goodbye?
So there are a lot, and I will say probably the easiest and fastest way is through social media. I don't have a lot of social media, but I do follow on Facebook for a lot of moms groups. Um, like Kentucky Spin is one that I'm thinking of just the top of my head, but there's probably 4 or 5 others.
Yeah.
Um,
But I will
and
say, I will caution you moms. I'm a believer of see it with my own eyeballs. Like I don't just take what someone says on a social media group as
no,
fact. You can't always do
um,
that. You want to look it up on regulation in Kentucky. And again, AI searches are probably good, or Google searches of just Kentucky education regulation around an IEP or a 504 or whatever it is, and
yeah.
search that way as well.
I will say that some of those groups, if you do have to kind of look for them, again, that KY Spin is pretty good. When like larger organizations in Kentucky are doing like virtual meetings or in-person meetings, they actually have a lot in Frankfurt. Those posts, those notifications that those public
Yes.
meetings, those public instructional sessions are going on, um, are really disseminated through a lot of those moms groups. And I really feel like those are kind of like the starting point for
Yeah.
parents. If you go to learn more about IEP advocacy, more about IEP support services. I mean, I would say at least once or twice a month, someone's going to post something that Fayette County Public Schools is having one. Mercer County Public Schools is having one, but they're there, and the districts are doing educational services, parent nights, all kinds of things like that. It's just getting connected to know when they're hosting them so that you can go to them and get that resource from either KDE, because they host all the time, or from your local district.
Yeah, that is good advice. And moms, thank you so much for listening today. We hope this is meeting your need and giving you the information you need to advocate. But you can do it, moms. You're the head of your child's care team, both at school and in your medical care team. And we are definitely here to help if you have additional questions. But thank you, Jill. Thanks for coming on today. And we hope that our moms share this episode with other moms that are struggling or in the same place or have a lot of questions. And subscribe, come back Wednesdays as we launch our new episodes, and look at our past episodes. You might find some other things that help you through the journey of being a mom. So thank you. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much for listening to Help, I Have Kids. If you're tuning into this podcast, that means you're a mom who's curious, committed, and ready to learn. And we see you. We'd love for you to join our Help, I Have Kids Facebook community, where moms just like you are connecting, asking questions, and encouraging each other every day. It's a space for real conversations, expert insight, and support from moms who get it, because we're all in this together. And if you know a mom who's feeling unsure or maybe overwhelmed, or just needs to be reminded that she can do it, she can advocate for her child with confidence, share this episode with her. We're building a village here, and we're glad you're a part of it.